So what is sell products?
I do sell products to make money. Yeah.
Lipstick to brand awareness.
Right.
Boozy. What up, bro? My guy. Man, I bought two of them, what it is, the Sapporo beers this weekend. I drank one and I have one left. Kinda in the mood for a drink right now. I'm trying to think, should I just pour me like a little shot of liquor? Or should I have my whole tall can of beer? I might wait for that beer, bro. I should have fixed me a drink before I came up here. I'm gonna throw this beat on. I'm gonna run downstairs real quick and grab me a little sippy sip. I'll be right back. Crown Boys up in this thing too. What's good? What's good? is the Sapporo beer. I'll show you. Hold on. It says brewed and canned by Sapporo, Vietnam. Yeah, this shit, it's a Vietnam beer, yo. Premium, it's a lager. But yo, this is the hardest beer can I've never seen a beer can this fucking hard. Like, you cannot crush this fucking can, bro. But the beer is delicious. And I only got 2 of them, bro. These shit's $4 a piece. 2 beers is $8. Man, you can down there get a 6-pack for $8. You can get a 6-pack of some cheap shit for a couple dollars. But shit, these shits right here, man. Yo. That's why I be trying to save this shit, man. I don't be having $4 and $5 just for one beer. That shit like going to the club and drinking. But I do got some vodka. So here I got some vodka, some apple cider vinegar, and some Schweppes tonic water. It's my own little concoction that I like to call delicious. Going to see the sugar doctor. You about to get you some sugar boogers? I know some people like that sugar booger, that nose candies. I'm going to see the sugar doctor. I need something sweet for my teeth. Nose candy later this shit. Ain't nothing more important than your health, bro. Yes, sir. Let's go see the sugar doctor. Make sure all the levels are where they need to be. Everything's staying consistent. This right here is all natural, 100% organic tobacco. It's just tobacco, people. this is one of the this that Egyptian tobacco. This strand has been in America for hundreds of years, though. You know what I'm saying? The American version of the Egyptian tobacco is definitely very strong. Strong ass tobacco. It's summertime. What up, Doyle? Enjoying this beat, bro. Also, a few puffs and time to narrate. They don't blow. Also, a few puffs. Now it's time to narrate and create. Yeah, I couldn't even listen just now. Alright, I ain't want to burn it up too bad. Burn it up, burn it up, burn it up, burn it up. Where's another beat I haven't listened to in a while? You really got to get a lot of painting done, man. I ain't gonna lie. I've been slow rolling this painting because I'm painting the background. I love to paint people, but I also want my paintings to be more dynamic and have a lot of elements in it. And so when I paint other shit that's not people, it just, I don't know, it seems tedious to me. I enjoy the older version of Left-Handed Tobacco because the older version of Left-Handed Tobacco was more organic. Now they've actually taken it and turned it into a drug. They have synthesized it and cloned it and extracted all it's not even the thing no more. It's not even what it used to be, bro. And I remember the first time I heard somebody say that shit, this was like years ago. My man was like, yo, my man said, I'd rather smoke Reggie. All this loud and all, he was like, all that shit is too much. It's too strong. It's too much, bro. Like, who the fuck need all that extra shit? And so, once again, they've taken a plant and turned it into a drug, just like they do everything else. They took the coca plant and turned it into a fucking drug. You take the poppy plant and turn it into a fucking drug. Now you've taken the marijuana plant and turned it into a fucking drug. None of these shits aren't drugs. They're plants. They're just plants. Some of them have certain properties that has a certain effect on the human physiology. Some mushrooms do the same thing. Some people even get the same chemical effects in their brain from eating certain foods like chocolate or sugar. And so, but these are plants that you've manipulated and taken so far away from its original state that you can't really call it the same thing anymore. Like you've changed it into something else. Nah, that's an old head saying back in the day, a left hand cigarette. He just saying left hand tobacco because I said I'm smoking tobacco and I don't actually have a cigarette. But a regular cigarette is a cigarette, and then you have a left-handed cigarette. You ain't never heard of a left-hand cigarette? Bro, they've changed it. Like I say, and it's, you can tell it's GMO so bad that, once again, back in the day, you bought your little thing or whatever, and you would have to like clean it because it had seeds in it. Because plants have seeds. That's how they reproduce. And now you can see what they've done to most of our fruits. Don't produce seeds anymore. Seedless grapes, seedless watermelons, seedless oranges. They're trying to get apples. Like, there's so many different fruits and vegetables that they've modified. They don't produce seeds anymore. And you can clearly see this with left-handed cigarettes. Back in the day, you had to clean your seeds out. Now, the shit don't have seeds in it anymore. So it's a strange thing. I have a love-hate relationship with almost everything in my life, and that's definitely one of them. At one point, I know I definitely overconsumed, like in my teenage years and 20s. I definitely overconsumed, and too much of anything is bad for you. You can die from water. You know what I'm saying? Too much of anything is bad for you. But you know, if you're able to use anything in moderation, then you're pretty good. That's a wrap, bro. You ain't help, man. Look, man, you ain't help clean nothing. I'm good. And so it's the same thing here again. So if you buy fruits with no seeds, even if you wanted to, you couldn't reproduce that fruit because you don't have a seed for it. But if you can buy an apple with a seed, you can take that apple seed and potentially grow yourself a full apple tree or a grapevine or anything like that because you had access to the seeds. And the same thing with pot. You don't have access to the seeds anymore. And so they want to manipulate it so drastically that no one can have seeds unless you purchase them from a certain company or corporation who banks big time off of this shit. So they want to slowly find a way to manipulate the plant, turn it into a drug, regulate it, wipe out every way that it can be sold street level or interpersonal exchange between two individual parties, and have everything controlled by government and corporations. Which everything has a good side and a downside, you know what I'm saying? Regulations are good. That's why we have seat belts in our cars, you know, because of regulations. That's why they ask you to turn off your cell phones when you're on an airplane, because of regulations. So regulations are good, and they help people to understand things about a system that they may not be aware of. You know, all the architects and engineers are more deeply aware of things that could go wrong with any kind of device, machine, or contraption that we use, and so forth. They make regulations to make sure that the least amount of things go wrong as possible, and then they tell the public, hey, if you do this, it's just in your interest because we've regulated it this way. You know, don't sell this product to minors. if you take this over the counter prescription, don't take, X amount in X amount of hours, because it's regulated that way. So everything, regulations are good. So taking something like this, and the only reason they are able to regulate it now is because they're making it a drug. They're making it a drug. So yeah, you can't beat a southern watermelon, bro. Like an organic watermelon, you can't beat that shit, bro. Yo, tight. Uh, yeah, and that's why in the Netherlands and Switzerland, I think there's one in Maine or somewhere in Northeast America. They have seed banks, massive seed vaults that are filled with untouched, uncontaminated, non-GMO, 100% organic seeds from all trees and all fruits that are native to the lands. And they have these seed banks or vaults set up because they know for a fact that what they're doing is wrong, and it could go catastrophically wrong and wipe out our food supply. And they keep making all these GMO fruits, and what if there's some strain of fungus that comes along and starts wiping out crops and crops, and they can't figure out how to stop the fungus or bacteria or whatever, but then nobody don't got seeds neither. Um, cloning of vegetables is a it's a century old or better, but not they did more of genetic breeding and not so much of actual genetic manipulation as they're doing now. It's these people are now tampering with the actual genetic code of these plants. Before, we would just breed for genetics. So if you want bigger carrots, you only take seeds and plant from the biggest carrots. You never use the little carrots. And slowly they've changed carrots from purple and red to white, and so you get the darkest carrots and keep breeding those, and the color continues to get darker and darker. And so, but that's genetic breeding and not genetic manipulation. Now they're just manipulating the gene sequences in these plants. Yeah, the World Seed Bank. There's a few of them though. I think Sweden has like the main one, but there's a few of them. There's more than one. And then you get Monsanto's. Yeah, but genetic breeding is a very old practice, a very old practice, and that's how we have most of our food stocks now, is because we had to genetically breed the ones that were suitable for us, like wild grains, wheats, oats, and rice. Like that shit was wild forever until agriculture, and then we had to, select the ones that were good for us and make sure that those plants propagated, and then we always chose the best of those plants to generate more generations of them and propagate more. And so we definitely have selected and genetically cultivated and breeded our food stocks in a way that are to our likings, and we've done that, like you say, for hundreds of years now. But they're doing way more to the plants now. They're in the lab with the microscope, and they're taking pieces of the DNA out and then putting pieces of this DNA in and splicing shit on the genetic and it's like, It's in Norway or Sweden. I know it's one of those northern European countries like Norway, Sweden, somewhere up there. The Roundup Ready corn, bro. That Roundup Ready corn and the corn and the grain and change the whole fucking landscape of farming and what food is. Like I say, now you get watermelons with no seeds in that shit. That ain't natural, man. I don't give a fuck how long we've been selectively breeding watermelons. They still had to have seeds so we can keep making more watermelons. We never tried to get rid of the fucking seeds. We just wanted bigger, richer, redder, sweeter watermelons. So we always bred the best ones. But they still had seeds. They were still a natural plant. Now that shit ain't. It's something. It's frankenfruit. Motherfuckers eating frankenfruit. Y'all messing shit up, man. And once again, back to the left-hand cigarettes. Y'all fucking that shit up too, man. Everything, you gotta tamper with everything, man. Now I got some blueberry kush headband, Afghanistan, super sour. Man, that shit like a drug, bro. Y'all making drugs out the plants now. Got the plastic rice. Half the rice grains ain't even real rice. It's plastic, man. Most seeds. But you couldn't hardly take a bite out of a watermelon without. You know what I'm saying? That was the fun part. Spitting the seeds up, man. That shit. I remember the first time I heard my grandma say a watermelon don't taste the same as it did when she was a kid. And I'm like, you just old, and your taste buds is old, and your memory getting bad. And how can you really tell the difference in a watermelon when you was 8 and a watermelon when you 60? Come on now, be for real. How can you tell and you know what? You can tell the fucking difference. You can. You can definitely tell the difference. And that's scary. It's scary that our food doesn't taste the same. What are they doing to this shit? Oh, the FDA has officially approved lab-grown chicken. But y'all think when y'all was in school and y'all was eating them chicken nuggets that shit was all chicken? Bro, Soylent Green. Soylent Green. My grandma told me that tomatoes used to have a little spice to them. Yeah, now it's real, bro. Now we can see the difference too. Oh my damn. They got us by the balls. What you gonna do? Go plant a garden? You can plant a garden. And then the plane's gonna fly over and spray chemtrails. And then it's gonna rain and all the chemtrails gonna wash down into your garden and onto your fruits and vegetables and into the ground. And then your fruit's gonna soak up that chemtrail water. And they contaminating the whole planet, bro. And it's very difficult to escape this shit. There's hardly anywhere around it. And then the simple fact that the average person doesn't hunt, kill, and butcher their own meat. You don't grow, cultivate, and harvest your own fruits and vegetables. We really don't know where our food comes from. I mean, you know, there is an apple orchard and there is a cattle ranch, but which one? If you don't go to a farmer's market, a local farmer's market, you don't know where this shit's coming from. All of our food is so processed. Everything we eat is so highly processed and pumped with so many preservatives because it does have to travel so far, and it does have to have the ability to sit in your grocery store for a week at a time. It's almost impossible to escape this shit, man. It's soft kill. Our food is literally soft kill. And then we wonder why thyroid issues is on the rise, cancer is on the rise, autism is on the rise, diabetes is on the rise, obesity is on the rise. These are all early death triggers. So we can't just drop a nuke on y'all motherfuckers and kill all y'all at one time. We can't just poison the water and have, 10 million people drop dead at once. But what we can do is significantly shorten your lifespan, and you don't even know it. Because all you're doing is eating and drinking and breathing air. You're just living a normal life. But all the normal shit you do kills you. I ain't trying to hear what old folk were saying, and not and not that we're becoming the old heads. We're like, duh. Well, processed rice, it is horrible. This conversation tells who has really American roots. And like you said, they have us by the balls because even if you get seeds and grow your own veggies and fruits, where you getting the seeds from? You still got to get the seeds from them, bro. They got you by the balls, nigga. Clenched. I dare you to move. What? What? Okay. As soon as you try something, you got a water engine, motherfucker. You collecting rainwater on your own property? Get the fuck out of here. You came up with a cure for cancer, bitch. What the dude was selling, he had his own farm. He was selling raw milk to his neighbors. It's just cow milk. His cows are healthy. Motherfucker, who are you? Who the fuck are you to sell milk, healthy cow milk to your neighbor? Bitch, I will crush you, nigga. Go to the grocery store. Buy everything pasteurized, freeze-dried, Ziploc, laminated plastic. It's all you get. I dare you. I dare you to sell that chicken again. You sell that chicken to your, I will end your life, boy. You collect that rainwater, I will, ooh. Where you get them seeds from? Let me see. Get that shit the fuck out of here. Monsanto seeds, nigga. Roundup ready, bitch. I bet not see no seeds in that water. I bet not see one seed in that watermelon. If I see a seed in that watermelon, bro, who controls the food is the master. Realize that shit. Dr. Amos Wilson been saying that shit, bro. You don't feed yourself, you don't control yourself. Hunger will make you kill. Hunger will make you kill. Whoever controls your food controls your life. We don't control our food, bro. The motherfuckers was fighting over tissue when the pandemic started. Mother pushing and shoving over toilet paper. You can't even eat that shit. I mean, you can get a cloth and wipe your ass and wash it out and use the same. But these motherfuckers over toilet tissue. Imagine when there's no food. Imagine what people would do for a can of beans. Imagine what a person would do who has kids to protect their cans of beans. Give me this hand sanitizer. This motherfucker opened his garage up. He got 2,000 bottles. Yo, that man had 2,000 bottles of hand sanitizer. Nigga, these bottles going for $40 a pop, nigga. What's good? Y'all ain't want nothing? Imagine when there ain't no food. And that part. The ones with the stripes, there's something about stripes. If you like apples, I learned this shit too. Apples with stripes on it are sweeter. You get your Honey Crisp apple, they got stripes on that bitch. Boy, something about stripes on certain fruits or seeds and shit, man. 10 days. Most people ain't got 10 days worth of food in their house. Once again, a whole family, man, you got a husband, a wife, and 2 kids and a dog. The average person don't got a week worth of food. Can you go 7 days, a whole 7 days without going to the grocery store for nothing? Nothing. Don't leave your house for 7 days and everybody eat. Like you say, in 10 days, yo, 10 days, bruh. And then on top of that, like, I got a deep freezer. But what if the power go out or some shit? My food ain't gonna last for 10 days without no power. That's what it is. The stripes mean it's a girl. That's what you gotta look for. And then if you're not sure, it's whichever ones don't have oh shit, I'm about to get that confused. The females have the little white flowers when they start first sprouting, I think. Alright. So I did get a little bit done this weekend on this paint. I don't know why the back of my fucking ear is itching. I feel like I got bit by a mosquito or something, bro. Like right there. What the fuck? Let me find out there's a mosquito in this bitch. Yo, mosquito will get you on the weirdest fucking spot. I remember like in the summer when I was growing up in South Carolina, bro, like our mosquitoes used to be bad as fuck. So we try to stay with the fucking shit, but you get that mosquito bite like in the middle of your back where you cannot reach that bitch, or somewhere on your face or some dumbass shit, man. They have mosquito bites like here, just scratching that shit all day. Like, what the fuck is that? It's goddamn mosquito bite, huh? You have shorts on, everything up here be good. Your calves just be all fucked up. Ugh. Nah, I swear that's what it feels like. It got me behind my goddamn ears. Hell if I know, bruh. That is a good ass question. Motherfucker be biting us the fuck up, man. Alright, so over the weekend I was working on these windows, and in this portion of the wall, this line is still kind of crooked. I could not get that bit straight. I could not hardly get this line straight. And then I got confused. I thought this line was this line for a minute. So I did some weird shit. And then also, like, this brick line kind of curves out a little bit right there. I didn't see that shit at first. So I had to come back and kind of like make sure that we can see this curve right here. And so the wall, it comes out and it goes in where the windows are at. It comes out here, then it goes back in to this little dip, and then comes back out. It's weird how they got this building built. But I don't know, the bricks kind of confused me for a little bit, but I busted my way through it. The shadows on the window blinds and shit are starting to look pretty good. And I'm just leaving this blank. This is where I'm gonna put that tree at. I did work on this door a little bit. Still is not perfect. I gotta square up this window right here a little bit. We're starting to get like some highlights and little details in that door. But alright, so kind of worked in at this section. Then I kind of got this section. And now I got that section. So I want to get like, did I just touch that? Yeah. So I want to get like this in between section here. And then I'll do this part last. So just want to like focus on this area right now for the next couple of days, I guess, because man, these little bricks right here, man, this shit is really kicking my ass, man. How many bricks you gotta have to brick a building? I hope y'all niggas got paid by the brick. Cause man, I done painted 1,000 fucking bricks. And then I gotta go back over it and add highlights and all that shit. I'm gonna done paint 2,000 bricks on this damn shit. I don't want to sound like I'm complaining as I'm complaining, but I'm complaining. I don't know why I do it to myself sometimes. Yeah. That's a cool looking building. Never thought to yourself, how many bricks is that? It's too many bricks. That's how many bricks it is, man. This nigga, it's too many bricks to paint. This is gonna be your last brick building for a while, bro. You know. Let's not do this anytime soon in the near future. Okay. I don't know why you chose to do 1,001 bricks. Looking like I got chicken pox again. Yo, that shit be crazy sometimes, bro. But that's something else that I always notice about living more north and in colder climates. My aunt, she used to live in Washington State, and I can remember the first summer I went up there. It was like there was hardly any flying bugs at all. There was bees, but it's mostly like pollinating bees. They ain't had none of them dangerous bees or wasps, and there was like hardly any fucking mosquitoes or gnats. It was like, I don't know, it's just the climate. Like, I guess some kind of insects don't like that shit. But that was one of the first things I noticed that summer, because like I say, growing up in the summertime, nigga, you outside, you gonna be out there like, yeah, what you say? Nah, yeah, you know, I'm just, nah. Now, I noticed the whole summer I was up there, I ain't had to swat no mosquitoes. I was like, this is crazy. And up here, like, I live way north Pennsylvania. And There's not a lot of mosquitoes here. It isn't. And but we do get wasps. We got a lot of fucking wasps, uh, flies and bees. But we don't get a lot of mosquitoes around this shit. And I live like by a fucking river. Like I'm less than a mile away from a river. You would think being so close to like water, you would have more mosquitoes and shit, but they ain't like that up here. They try to carry my sleeves. Try to carry me away, nigga. You get them big ass mosquito hawks. Them motherfuckers will rob your ass at gunpoint. Nigga. Give it up, nigga. Give it up. Damn, you big ass motherfucker. What the hell? Big ass mosquito hawks, boy. If you get bit by one of them shits, you just slow. You can see that bitch coming in. That bitch be this goddamn big flying in front of your ass. Like, nigga, no. I want to look up something real quick. Hold on. I was about to say something. It was completely false. I was trying to figure out, like you say, why mosquitoes why mosquitoes bite black people so much. I was looking some shit up. That shit ain't right. I thought I had an answer for you. Alright, 50 minutes in. Let me paint for a minute. It is a work night. I do gotta get my ass back up early in the morning. I probably need some more paints. I'm trying to see what should we listen to. Oh, I don't know what the hell I just did. I'm always fucking with some shit. That controller sensitive as hell. I be trying to the melanin. What I was gonna say is, I don't know why I thought for some reason like only black people get sickle cell anemia. But I googled it, and it's like everybody can get sickle cell anemia. I thought that may have been something with it, but they might be able to smell the melanin in our blood. You know what I'm saying? You might be right. That shit tastes sweet. Um, hmm?
Yeah, the Dragon of Judah, melatonin magic producer. Yeah, Mr. Megorium's metaphor, emporium, fan glorious warriors with deep space euphoria. The Dragon of Judah executed the lion from Narnia. I'm still trying to build God's army up. The pedagogy tried to call me a commie.
Cannabis just dropped a new track. Dragon of Judah. I'm gonna have to listen to that later. Cause that was my favorite rapper for his first two albums. Yo, Cannabis was my dude, bro. I could never rap like him, but I'm just like, yo, how do you have such a vocabulary, my guy? And then you find out this motherfucker was from Canada. And then Eminem come along and just, I don't even know why. I don't even know why M had to come at Cannabis, but when he did, that shit was just like, well, damn. Like, yeah, Cannabis. Sorry, bro. My guy got you. Oh, come on, camera. Come on, now. Stop. That right. I still like Cannabis though. When he first came out, man. Like I say, his delivery, his bars, his flow, his topics and themes that he chose to talk about. Yo, his vocabulary, like, yo, my man was a beast. And then he came at LL like, bro, why you come at a legend? I don't give a fuck if you like this nigga or not, bro. Even, yo, you can't. My guy, why would you even try to come at anybody like that, man? And when he came at L, that shit was not a good look, and he just never recovered from that. The same way Ja Rule never recovered from that 50 beef, and the same way T.I. took out a couple niggas. T.I. took out that nigga Lil Flip, and he crushed the other little dude, Shorty Low or whatever. Yo, you can't. Alright, you want to come at certain people, man? That shit you might risk your career doing that shit. Yo, even this, like, now my shit is loading super fucking slow.
Subscriptions are you paying? Rocket Money finds sneaky or forgotten subscriptions.
Oh, bruh. You ain't know that shit? Melanin worth more than gold? Bruh. This motherfucker, hold on. I don't know if I saved that shit or not. No, I just heard somebody else was talking about that shit too, but the thing is, like, we have more melanin in our organs that appears in our skin. Like, melanin, it flows through all of our organs, all of our tissues, everything. And so when these black men come up missing and they don't have organs, and these women come up missing and get found with their organs missing, bro, that's because, organs high in melanin are more desired for a transplant and replacement. Them shits are durable and they last longer. Melanin is highly desired and sought after. Oh, it's about to start raining, I think. Yo, I cannot find that dude breaking that shit down, but still.
Oftentimes, due to the society we live in that promotes the European standard of beauty, many black women can feel like their beauty isn't good enough. But this is starting to change more and more as they realize their melanin really is kind of like magic. Everyone has melanin, both light and dark skinned individuals. Melanin is a broad term for a group of natural pigments found in most organisms. It is the primary determinant of skin color. Black women greatly benefit from melanin because it prevents them from aging as quickly as other groups.
A study found that black women's skin typically ages about 10 years slower than white women's skin. Here's why. Human skin has 3 layers: the epidermis, the dermis, and the hypodermis. Melanocytes in the epidermis produce melanin, a natural skin pigment. Melanin blocks UV rays, which can accelerate the aging process. Black men and women produce more melanin in their skin, which results in darker pigments. The more melanin in your skin, the more protection you have against the harmful effects of sun exposure. Too much exposure to UV rays can cause skin to age quicker, resulting in wrinkles and sunspots. Since white women produce less melanin, they can show signs of aging faster. This doesn't mean that black women won't experience skin aging. It just happens at a slower rate.
Melanin is a molecule. And the concept of melanin is, it is black in its nature. And we find it in the cosmos, we find it in the heavens.
We find it in water, we find it in land, we find it in everything that exists.
Scholars and scientists have been having conferences about melanin, to my awareness, at least since the 1920s. These scientists said that the pineal gland, they refer to the pineal gland as a vestigial organ. That is a calcified gland within the body that serves no purpose, as if the creator would create something that you didn't need. And it was only after the Vietnam War, in the late 60s and early 70s, that they began to rewrite the interpretation of the pineal gland. The reason for that was that a large number of African Americans fought and died during the Vietnam War. And whenever a soldier dies, there's an autopsy that's performed before their body is sent back to Dover Air Force Base. And what they discovered, what these physicians discovered, is that when they performed the autopsies, the 75 to 80% of the African American soldiers had a large functioning pineal gland. The pineal gland is normally about the size of your thumb. So it was not a vestigial organ in 70 to 80% of African Americans, but it is a calcified organ in 75 to 80% of people with European ancestry. So they began to reevaluate the pineal gland.
So this is a complex molecule. It's found in the brain. It's found in your adrenal glands. It's a powerful free radical scavenger. In other words, it helps the body prevent this oxidation, so it's an antioxidant. Melanin may play a much bigger role than just absorbing all this radiation, and when you get it into your body, it actually has a major effect on your immune system. It protects genes and it actually repairs broken DNA. Isn't that wonderful? If something breaks down because you're exposed to chemicals or radiation, think of the people of Japan right now in 2011 who are suffering from huge amounts of radiation. What could we do to help them prevent?
Everything up here is just fucking buffering. Come on, YouTube. Oh my god. I always tell the story how I used to pick out my cousin when we were kids, cause this motherfucker is black, yo. This dude got some dark, pretty ass skin. But when I was younger, that shit was taboo. Like, you black ghost, you motherfucker. You used to play goddamn Mortal Kombat. They had this one character. This motherfucker was just a black silhouette. And it was, I think it was Noob Sabat or some shit. Yo used to call that nigga that shit. That motherfucker black as hell. now that I realize like what the fuck melanin actually is, it's like, damn, bro, I wish I was that fucking black, nigga. And like really dark skinned people do age slow. It look like they age slow as fuck, yo. Like, what the hell? That be that melanin, man. Motherfuckers don't hardly get no sun damage at all. No sun damage for their entire life. Just being black and just being that way. You know, my cousin, she not real dark, but she darker than I am. Like, she is like kind of chocolate. And she's 6 years older than me. I'm 42. She 40. She almost 50 years old. And yo, she look younger than me. Like, how you just stop aging when you was 30? Like, what the fuck did you do? You just said, I'm not gonna get any older than this, and then literally just stop aging. Now she's just gonna look like she's 30 for the rest of her life. Like, what the fuck? Until she's 60, then she'll start looking like she's 45. One of my homeboys, his sister's like that too. Like, she's not big on social media like that, but I remember the last time she posted a picture, and this was a couple years ago, and she grown as shit, but I swear it's like it looked like her high school picture. Like, that's like, this is, you just took this picture? She's like, yeah. I'm like, yo, you look like this, like your high school picture. You still look like a fucking kid. Like, what the hell? That shit made me jealous. I'm aging okay, but I smoked for so many fucking years, and I drank, and I don't eat great, and now I'm starting to see that shit in my face and everything. I gotta do better, because I ain't real dark skinned. I don't got that extra protection. That I ain't got that added layer of comfort. Gots to do better. I be really big on my water intake lately, though. I swear on that one. I be trying to get that goddamn water in there quiet. You know what I'm saying? And keep that exercise up. I gotta have some way to counteract all the bad shit I do. Stay with some water and try to exercise. One of these days I'm gonna quit these cigarettes again for the last time. That's really what I want to do. If I can just not, cause I didn't quit cigarettes 2 times for a year, like a year at a time, and then I don't know, just. I can remember when I started back smoking, because I was doing good, yo. And then as soon as I bought this house, yo, that shit had me stressing. Man, I was so stressed out over some shit, man. I was like, fuck, I need a cigarette. I started back smoking, and that was almost 5 years ago. Now I've been smoking for like another 5 years. But I keep telling myself, if I can stop for a year again, I'll never go back to that shit. There won't be no point, man. If I can quit for a whole year, I'm at that point now where I hope nothing don't ever stress me out that bad, ever. Like, it was like a couple of different things going on, man. Like, I had some family issues going on. I didn't know what I was going to do about work. I just bought a house. I was like, man, my relationship was all fucked up. But I needed it. Hey, it was just this one day, but I needed that cigarette so bad. Woo! Lord.
going solar in Pennsylvania, but afraid of the huge price tag attached? Most people don't know this, but almost 100% of homeowners make the switch for $0 down. But there's a that prevent your immune system. The president, melanin may play
a much bigger role than just absorbing all this radiation, and when you get it into your body, it actually has a major effect on your immune system. It protects genes and it actually repairs broken DNA. Isn't that wonderful? If something breaks down because you're exposed to chemicals or radiation, think of the people of Japan right now in 2011 who are suffering from huge amounts of radiation. What could we do to help them prevent cancer developing? Well, you need a DNA repairer, and that's what melanin does. It exists in many other tissues, as I mentioned. It's actually a very important molecule in any woman who's having a baby, because the fetus has all this melanin in it.
The sperm of the male and the egg of the woman, they're both layered with melanin, so that when the sperm penetrates the egg, there is a melanin explosion, and that melanin helps to formulate the fetus within that egg, and that fetus is literally coated with a melanin substance. And that melanin substance then goes on to form the brain and the central nervous system. So every human being begins with a melanin explosion.
In steering things in the body, in the whole regulatory system, melanin's role in embryological organization, that's in the baby's organization, and tissue repair and tissue regeneration, may be connected to the major role that it plays to balance the body. That's called homeostasis. Here's a picture of a baby at 35 days of pregnancy, and this is the eye of an embryo. Notice that the eye is pure melanin. That's an amazing picture, isn't it? To see all this melanin is inside, and when the embryo first forms, there is what's called the dark streak. It's all melanin.
It is the dynamic, the primary dynamic in every part of the cell. It's a primary dynamic in the core of the human being as well as to the surface of the human being. Its intelligence is responsible for the forming of the nervous system. Every part of the nervous system has these little black dots all through it, which essentially carry information.
The body is actually a communication system where everything is connected to everything else, and it works through light. It works through light. It's called biophotons. And in this communication system, cells have connections to other cells called integrins, and electrons and light flows between cells. So it's like a supercomputer. In fact, there's somebody even studying whether energy is directly absorbed from the melanin in your skin and transformed into energy in your body. And it's thought to be, by some people, a master molecule that actually steers how the body communicates.
Clearly, the more melanin you have, the more beneficial it is to your being and to your body. How could anyone ever be ashamed of the melanin that possesses so much magic? This video was sponsored by Talia White.
Bro, they already know, for sure. They already know that shit. That shit is definitely expensive as fuck. Why is it worth more than gold? Man, that shit got healing properties, man. That shit got regenerative properties. That shit got protection properties, communication properties. Melanin is the end all be all. It's one of the best things about the human body. And that's why, on average, most humans have some degree of melanin. most people are colored. Most people have color to them. But there is a small portion of the human population that is not able to produce nearly as much melanin as everybody else. And there's another portion of the human population that produces the most amount of melanin out of everybody. And I'm not saying that makes them people special, but it is definitely something to investigate. You know, and that's what they doing. The scientists trying to figure out the science. My nigga, why you so black? Huh? Why you so black? And why it look like you not aging? And why it look like you never get sick? And why we try to kill you with AIDS, but that shit not working? How you immune to that shit now? Because your melanin has codes that can remember how to fend off diseases and viruses, even if they are man-made? How is you able to do that? How come we can't kill you with none of our bioweapons that we keep unleashing on you? Why are you so resilient? I think it's something to do with you just being black. Why the fuck are you so dark skinned? Fuck does this mean? What does it mean? Scientists, tell me. What the fuck does it do? Melanin is magic. No, they're magic? They're like unicorns? Basically. They're human unicorns. Alright, I gotta take a bathroom break real quick. But I'll be right back. Let me try to put this back, something back on YouTube. Let me see.
Into special threat testing M855 NATO 62 grade. In the complex field of geopolitical conflict, there's been a coup, but what kind of coup was it? Who benefits from this coup? Who is Prigozhin? Another new word we've got to learn now. And what's really behind this story? Is it to do with the failing Ukrainian counteroffensive, the squandered Ukrainian lives that benefit the American imperialist interests currently playing out? I don't know, but by the end of this video we'll be a lot closer to the truth together. Let's have a look at how the mainstream media are peddling this new set of NATO benefiting narratives.
Breaking news. A Russian mercenary chief with thousands of troops ordering an armed rebellion and march on Moscow, only to abruptly call it off. Yevgeny Prigozhin of the Wagner Group saying he halted the march to avoid shedding Russian blood.
Do you know what a war is? It's weird, isn't it, that he's a Russian mercenary as well, that works for a private branch of the Russian military. It's not Mother Teresa, is it? It's not Princess Diana, not Nelson Mandela. He's a Russian mercenary.
An extraordinary day of events and chaos. This dramatic video circulating online earlier today, an angry Vladimir Putin vowing to crush the rebellion.
It's children's news. When I was a kid, there used to be a show called Newsround. It was news for children, but now actual news is like news for children. Putin is angry because someone tried to do a coup at him. Poo on that coup. Now it's Big Bird with the weather. Oh, there's water coming from this guy. We're adults.
In a televised address to the nation, calling it treason and a stab in the back.
The first one, that's actually a legalistic term. Second one, it's emotional rhetoric, isn't it? Firstly, you are here for the crime of treason. Plus, you are no longer my best friend. Make up. You bet we break up!
The high-tension turn of events culminated today with those rebel forces marching toward Moscow.
At this stage of the war, can we at least agree on the pronunciation of Moscow?
Toward Moscow. But over the past few hours, the mercenary leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin...
He looks pretty badass. I don't think he's going to be any better. You know, like when sort of a coup gets backed by Western interests and there's some sort of insurgency that we stir in a sovereign nation of some kind, you sort of think, who's this guy you're backing? We did it, Britain, with like Pinochet. He was a right bastard.
Announced his troops will turn around after reaching a deal with the leader of Belarus to seek shelter there. In turn, the Russian government promised it would drop all criminal charges against him and his fighters will not be prosecuted.
What led Prigozhin to launch this coup? First, it's evident these escalating conflicts with the Russian state and military apparatus came to a head. The coup attempt was preceded by Prigozhin's vitriolic denunciations of the Russian defense minister, whom he accused of not waging the war aggressively enough. He's got an angle on this war, isn't he, this geezer? This war! Yes, this terrible war! No, this war not aggressive enough. Niet! That should be his son. Did you enjoy sports day, man? Niet! Do you like destroying targets of a bomb? Niet! It's been reported that funding for Wagner has to be substantially cut. I'm not telling him, but cutting the funding for Wagner. Niet! Earlier this month, Prigozhin refused to accept Putin's demands that Wagner be placed under the control of army leadership. So he's a pretty serious badass, this geezer. Putin tells him we're taking control of that. There is, after all, a great big war going on. He says niet. What I'm interested in is whether or not NATO are involved with or benefit from this, and how the media will use it, particularly contrasted with the terrible, egregious bloodbath that is the Ukrainian counteroffensive, which the media have been telling us for some time was going to be when the dynamics of the war altered, everything was going to be okay, and we'll all be home for Christmas. The way that wars have been reported on since there've been global wars, really. There is evidence that the military was fed up with Putin's long-time patronage of Prigozhin. His operations in Ukraine, while useful to a limited extent, also interfered with the professional conduct of the war by trained officers. Prigozhin, one can safely surmise, attempted the coup in order to preempt actions against him. Okay, so it was a preemptive strike. It's not like Prigozhin's an idealist. We have to end this war. He's an idealist who's, we have to make this war more aggressive. Dad, I got a swimming certificate at school today. Niet! Second, it will be the height of political cluelessness to believe that NATO has been a passive bystander in the events of the last 24 to 36 hours. Okay, so let's see how much political cluelessness there will be in the mainstream reporting of this event. It has certainly been following the escalating war of words between Prigozhin and the Russian military with extreme care, and it can be assumed that it made contact with him. There is no other credible explanation for the pro-NATO justification made by Prigozhin upon launching the coup. No, there can't be. This dude, who's got his own private army, who thinks the war isn't aggressive enough, in spite of all the death and bloodshed and horror, if he sort of goes, and also props to NATO, big shout out to NATO, just for the great work you're doing, impeding on Russian borders. Presumably some kind of communication has taken place. Let me know in the comments what you think. Prigozhin's NATO contacts would have had good reason to demand that he act now. The coup has been launched less than 3 weeks into the NATO-backed counter-offensive by Ukraine, having cost tens of billions of dollars to prepare. Your money. It has so far proven to be a debacle, with thousands of Ukrainian soldiers dying each day. That's Ukrainian human beings. And only a few villages seized. It's gotten to the point where the US media describes as a massive triumph the ability of Ukrainian forces to capture and hold for a few hours a tiny, nondescript village. The main news again, we've got this village. Can you describe it? No! In just over 2 weeks, NATO will be holding a major summit in Vilnius, that's in Lithuania, that until the coup attempt threatened to be dominated by Ukraine's military debacle. So there was about to be a conference where everyone would go, hey, what about all that stuff you told us? What about all those taxpayer dollars? Now it's like, check out this guy. He's a badass, isn't he? The Biden administration and its NATO allies calculate that a coup attempt, even if not successful, would destabilize the regime and undermine its military operations. In any case, the coup attempt has shifted the media narrative away from the failed Ukrainian counteroffensive to the failing Putin regime. Let me know if you think things like that are engineered, utilised, they're just optimised after they happen. How do you think these things play out? Let me know in the comments. The immediate response of high-level representatives of US imperialism, the Zelensky regime and the pro-NATO opposition within the Russian oligarchy makes clear that the coup did not come as a surprise. US Army Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who has been a key figure in the US preparations for war against Russia for over a decade. What? They've been preparing for it for over a decade? Well, that's not what we've been told, is it? Okay, it's a war against Russia. How do you know? Well, 10 years ago, we started preparing for one, and here it is. Merry Christmas. Tweeted on Friday evening, for all of those that have been wondering how the war in Ukraine is going, it's going insurrection in Russia well. They use that word insurrection pretty glibly, and that's not a good catchphrase. This chicken, it's insurrection in Russia, licking good. Also, it didn't stay insurrection in Russia well for that long, did it? Like a day. Later into the coup, he suggested that NATO use the opportunity to extend its air defences 100 miles into Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also expressed support for Prigozhin's coup attempt. Prigozhin's coup attempt exposes above all the bankruptcy of the Putin regime itself, out of which Prigozhin himself emerged. He is a Frankenstein monster created by Putin and over whom the Russian president lost control. And at some point, presumably if this coup is successful or if it's, the first of a few coups, we will see our media trying to frame him as some brilliant new alternative. Like when sort of Boris Yeltsin was in charge, he was like some cuddly, shaven Father Christmas, till we all learned he was a drunk nutcase. All of these figures ultimately operate within the same communal space, have the same interests, have the same allies. No one's going to emerge out of a mercenary army and like go, our priority is the children. Aye, it's like going to be some other bastard. For decades, Putin and Prigozhin were close allies. Until recently, the Wagner Group, which originated within the Russian military intelligence, GRU, enjoyed the evident patronage of Putin and other powerful forces within the state apparatus. Prigozhin, a fascistic warlord billionaire and convicted criminal, and now please welcome our new ally, a fascistic warlord and billionaire convicted criminal. Should we be clapping this? Yeah, keep clapping. It's NATO approved. Represents a substantial faction of the Russian oligarchy that opposes the war solely because Putin's effort to protect the capitalist classes and states' privileged access to the country's vast resources has cost them dearly. Putin has sought to balance between these factions, and this attempt to reconcile opposing oligarchic interests has determined the conduct of what he still calls a special military operation. From the beginning, the Kremlin's policy in Ukraine has been based on the hope that limited military pressure could persuade the Western imperialist powers to accept the legitimate security interests of the Russian capitalist regime. Putin has persisted with this aim even as all of his red lines have been crossed, the latest red line being the attempt to overthrow him. How Putin responds remains to be seen, whether through a military escalation or with significant concessions to reach some sort of accommodation. The imperialist powers, however, are not interested in compromise. Their ultimate goal is the carve-up of Russia so as to bring the vast resources of the entire former Soviet Union under their direct control. That's a pretty heavy aim, isn't it? That sounds a lot different from we must help and protect Ukrainian people from these criminal aggressors. And again, I'm not disputing criminal aggressors, but I am disputing humanitarian, just because I don't think since the Second World War there's been anything like that has happened. Do you? Ultimately, both Putin and Prigozhin represent the same social class, an oligarchy steeped in criminality and hatred of the working class. So basically the same as American democracy then. Which one of these total bastards shall it be? The interests of the Russian and Ukrainian oligarchies preclude any progressive form of defence of the interests of the mass of the working people against the predatory policies of imperialism. The war in Ukraine must be stopped through the independent revolutionary mobilisation of the international working class, not the NATO-backed overthrow of the Putin regime and a carve-up of Russia. In a sense, it's one of those stories that shows you how far off the mark we are, potentially making a media darling for a moment of just another mercenary oligarchical figure simply in order to pursue the mercenary oligarchical interests of US imperialism while maintaining is a humanitarian effort, which of course Ukraine are willing to believe because currently at least it backs their interests. But in the post-war carve-up of Ukraine and Russia, depending on how the war goes, we will see who truly benefits. And I don't think it's going to look that humanitarian when BlackRock come marching in, carve up that country, whichever one of those countries is, either, both, neither, I don't know, and turn them into technological utopias that can be cannibalised by the elite interests that currently are fighting to gain centralised control of all of our lives. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments? If you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these. Turn on the notification bell and subscribe right now. My special, Brandemic, is available right now. There's a link in the description. Have a look at it. It's self-made, uncensored, it's loads of fun. You'll love it. And we make this content every day on Rumble and talk to brilliant experts. That's how we get this information together so fast. For example, we're talking to Jeffrey Sachs this week. Join us on Rumble for that. Until then, stay free.
Okay. Well, I guess you gotta pay to watch your stand-up thing. Anyway.
The key challenges that most modern businesses face is that they end up accumulating.
OpenAI consultants show how they've been going from natural language instructions to robot actions to synthesized molecules using GPT-4. As usual, I used a text-to-image model to generate the header here. This is Midjourney 5.2, which only came out a few hours ago. Isn't that a beautiful image with all of that blue? Completely generated, conceptualized from scratch. You can see here it's being compared to my other 3 reports all the way back to 2021. And you can get a copy of this report online. It's about 15 pages to read end to end. Now let me take you all the way back to 1993, when Professor Vernor Vinge, who coined the phrase the singularity, said, "By the year 2023, we'll have the technological means to create superhuman intelligence. We're on the edge of change comparable to the rise of human life on Earth. The major changes happening in a matter of hours. I think it's fair to call this event the singularity, a point where our old models must be discarded and a new reality rules." And that's just the first 6 months of 2023. Across so many metrics, the first half of this year has been incredible. Things like public visibility, model releases, use cases and applications of models that probably hadn't been considered several years ago. And we're going to talk around all of it today. Let's start with one of my quotes that was picked up by a US entity, the National Bureau of Economic Research, NBER. ChatGPT gained more than 100 million users in its first 2 months and is now estimated to produce a volume of text every 14 days that is equivalent to all the printed works of humanity. That's pretty extraordinary. A separate organisation, Pew Research, looked at the fact that over half of US adults had heard of ChatGPT. Remember, this is just one tiny model of thousands, and 14% had used it. There was also another study that found 30% of professionals at places like JP Morgan, Bank of America, Google, Twitter, had used ChatGPT in the workplace, applying it to their actual work. Really extraordinary stuff. Let's have a look at my favourites, my best ofs for the first half of 2023. And this is very different to December 2022. So just 6 months ago, some of this stuff didn't even exist. Now it's my best of. Let's start with the best of Open Language Model. And this has to go to OpenAI's GPT-4. They announced this model in March 2023. They gave it a bigger context window, so it's got a much longer short-term memory. It can remember a lot more. You can feed it massive documents. It's even got a vision component where it can see stuff and interpret what it has seen. What about the best dialogue model? Who should I talk to? What is the best chatbot now? Well, again, it didn't exist last year. My favorite dialogue model is Inflection AI's Pi, and I really recommend that you play with this. There's no login needed. It's completely free. You can just go and start chatting with it at heypi.com. And for text-to-image models, there are a lot out there now, but Midjourney's been on top for many, many months. The latest version, 5.2, with its zoom control, its realism, and its new data set is just incredible. It's just come out, June 2023. It's my favorite model. As you've seen, I used it to generate the header for this report. Here's an example of some of the zoom in and zoom out that it can conceptualize, not just filling in the edges, but thinking about what that entire canvas would look like. For 2 or 3 years now, my best AI app has been Emerson, but this year it's a little bit different. My favorite AI app, and one that I use pretty much weekly, is Quora's Poe, Poe.com. Once again, really easy to start using that as a free tier, and I recommend you throw it on your phone and on the web. It gives you access to Claude Plus, which allows you to feed it like tens of thousands of words. At the end of last year, Hugging Face, the big model hosting platform, had hosted 100,000 new models in 12 months. Remember, we're only 6 months into 2023, and we've already beat that. It's something like 130, 140,000 new models in 6 months. Just incredible, and that changes every day. I did my very best to record and keep up with these models as they were being released. In 100,000, there's probably only a very small percentage of those that matter. Here's some of them. These are my highlights. I presented them in a number of ways. This is the timeline view. We've also got a complete listing of the token count and parameter count and the paper in the models table sheet that you can go and have a look at. This is really interesting stuff. The fact that all of these models are important and they're all being pushed out by competing labs means that we're getting access to some phenomenal, extraordinary large language model technology. Here's a different view. This is like my bubbles or beehive chart. You'll see Chinchilla that told us that we should use more data. You'll see Llama that was announced by Meta AI. We'll talk about this in a moment. It's this big model here, GPT-4. The latest rumor is that it's made up of 8 models to give us 1.76 trillion parameters for the final model. I put together an entire ranking. I'm calling it the Billboard chart. And in this Billboard chart, I'm ranking both the models and the data sets that make up these models. Let's start with the models. At number 1 there, GPT-4 with an AL score, a raw score of parameters by tokens of 14.9. Compare that with Chinchilla and Stable and Llama down the bottom, 1.0. The March 2023 release of GPT-4 was truly extraordinary. They really went crazy. They went beyond even what I'd expected. My first predictions here was that it was only 100 billion parameters. I was kind of right, but there's 8 of those in a mixture of experts. They drew on these massive data sets that they went out and licensed. Things like political and internal documents from the government of Iceland. There's rumours that they used a lot of YouTube, and they're certainly able to transcribe now around 1 trillion tokens from YouTube. It's a magical model available via API. You can even get it via ChatGPT if you've paid for a subscription. Google didn't want to be left out, so they trained a new version of their Palm model, calling it Palm 2. In partnership with DeepMind, one of their subsidiaries, they announced that they're also training a massive model called Gemini, rumored to be a few trillion parameters, which means they need to train on trillions and trillions of tokens, but Google have access to that kind of thing. This will be a really exciting multimodal model, which means it'll have video, audio, images as well. That collaboration is my current favorite. You can read more about that at lifearchitect.ai/Gemini. The data explosion was absolutely massive. Here is the datasets table from my Billboard chart. There's only a few datasets on there that existed last year. Everything else is new. Google are talking about using their internal code base, which is 86 terabytes. GPT-4 would have the largest dataset so far, and TII in the UAE found 5 trillion clean tokens just in the common crawl. And these datasets enabled us to come out with models showing incredible achievements. This is GPT-4 outperforming humans in everything, from theory of mind to medical knowledge to sommelier theory, which is wine tasting. It doesn't have a nose or a tongue, but it's able to tell you about red and white wine better than a human can. Incredible. I mentioned Llama very briefly. This was leaked by Meta AI kind of accidentally, and it became the base for a number of other models. People were using this 65 billion parameter Llama and fine-tuning it with outputs from much larger models like GPT-4, as well as playing around with other new efficiencies. Here's a slightly different view of this chart. This is just a list of some of the animal names applied to these imitation models that are using Llama as a base. The imitation concept is not that great. UC Berkeley found that imitation models close little to none of the gap from the base LM, like Llama, to ChatGPT on tasks that are not heavily supported in the imitation data. I love using this visualization to help people understand the difference between massive models like GPT-4 and Palm and these imitation models that are very small, maybe 1, 2. We found that imitation models close little to none of the gap from the base LM, like Llama, to ChatGPT on tasks that are not heavily supported in the imitation data. I love using this visualization to help people understand the difference between massive models like GPT-4 and Palm and these imitation models that are very small, maybe 1, 2, 3% of the larger models, and trying to use the answers from the larger models. It doesn't really work like that. Here's my viz saying that GPT-4 might be a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, and an imitation model like Alpaca or Koala might be the equivalent of a paper plane. And the take-up of these models by hundreds of millions of users has been incredible. Helped out by OpenAI giving this beautiful interface, Google building it into their products, Microsoft building it into their products, and then smaller outfits like Canva just putting it in as a base to some of their other functionality. The first 50 clients that picked up GPT-4 were interesting to me. These are the most innovative, leading-edge companies in the world. Some of them are older, but they have this mindset that says, let's keep up with the evolution of humanity. Here's the first 50. You'll recognize some at the top there, like PwC and Coca-Cola, but there's a few others that are kind of new. Some legal companies, some startups, some old school money companies like Morgan Stanley and I suppose Stripe, some governments, but these guys will go down in the history books as being on the bleeding edge of humans growing up and evolving. Most of the Fortune 500s have at least played with it now in mid-2023. All of the big four accounting firms have a version of GPT or a large language model, and all of the major consultancies from Bain to BCG have their hands in these pies. And you can see why. This is the next stage of humans evolving. Microsoft Azure brought in an additional 4,500 customers to OpenAI's direct offering to businesses both large and small. Physical embodiment of these large language models is completely necessary to get us to the next step. It's part of getting to artificial general intelligence, and in fact it's easy because we've had dozens of AI labs working on robotics for the last few years. Now there's finally a proper brain to put inside these models where the robot is not pre-programmed, but you can ask it or tell it anything and it will find the best solution or the most reasonable response to that request. So you've got Microsoft putting ChatGPT into drones. You've got several labs like Meta AI joining Boston Dynamics Spot Robot with large language models like ChatGPT. Then you've got Amazon combining large language models with their Astro Wheeled bot in a project called Burnham. And all this time, Tesla AI have had their own thing going on. They've got their Optimus bot or Tesla bot, and they're saying now that the Dojo supercomputer will have the equivalent of 100 exaflops, which is about 300,000 NVIDIA A100 GPUs worth of compute. They're going to have that by next year, apparently. Let's see how they go. My favorite bot right now must be 1X's Neo. It's a human-like android, and in March, the company raised $23.5 million led by OpenAI. Here's some stats behind it. It's about 160 centimeters high, 5'3", weighs 30 kilos. It can walk at 4 kilometers an hour and run at 12 kilometers an hour, and it can carry 20 kilos. This stuff can't be understated. I hope that I'm talking more about this at the end of 2023, when we'll see all of these companies, 1X, Figure, Tesla, that list goes on and on and on, and compare who's actually winning there. I think once we've got robots that can walk in, mine our iron ore, film our videos, do our accounting, lift stuff around the house, cook stuff in the kitchen. That's going to be really, really exciting. Next up, in the second half of 2023, I still shy away from making predictions, but here's a few things that I'm definitely expecting in the next 6 months, July to December 2023. The first one is full multimodality in models. We've had vision plus text in GPT-4, in Flamingo. Now we're going to go every modality, every sense that a human has. So this includes not just vision, but things like IMU, acceleration, gyroscope, compasses, auditory. We've already seen some of these models listening, oral and smell, gustatory and olfactory, tactile, touch and being able to flatten what that looks like, vestibular, proprioceptive, interoception, internal senses, all of this stuff can and will be built into these models. You've probably seen that some of the upcoming massive models like OpenAI's GPT-5 and Google DeepMind's Gemini have been trained on video. They have been trained on YouTube stuff to understand more about what we understand through our 5 senses and beyond. I'm also expecting far more self-driving cars in your city. There's so many competitors now, and they're all approaching level 5, which is full automation. You don't need a driver in there at all. Examples include Cruise's Origin, the Waymo vehicles that I use in Phoenix in California, Amazon's Zoox, DD Neuron in China, and the new autonomous sidewalk delivery service by NVIDIA-backed startup Serve Robotics. As usual, it's going to depend where you live, whether or not you get access to this before others. There is going to be a bit of a staggered pace, I think, here to see who gets this first. So if you're in Silicon Valley, if you're in Beijing or Shanghai, you're probably going to get this before someone in the back of Africa or someone here in the back of Australia, but it will make its way everywhere. The fact that we're able to build in brains rather than pre-program and say drive from here to here, but actually look around and sense and be able to find the most reasonable response to, for example, being pulled over by a cop or a pedestrian running in front of you. This is part of the most exciting aspect of integrated artificial intelligence. There's multi-trillion parameter models coming. Google DeepMind's Gemini will hit us by the end of the year. We may see Anthropic Claude Next, who are seeking $5 billion worth of funding, and GPT-5 will start training in December. We'll see how quickly that goes. I'm also expecting personalized explainers. We're now in urgent need of having more than 8 billion people know about amplification of intelligence. So if we can have a personal AI sit down and have these endless conversations with each person in the world, addressing their hopes and fears and the reality of the evolution as it happens, it's going to make it a lot easier. There's no debate. There's no, here's a sheet or watch the news. There's, here is a human-like avatar. Have a talk with them. Sit down with them for months, if you like, and ask them, tell them your hopes and fears and concerns, and that person will get a very custom and tailored response from the AI that will allow them to get ready for this evolution that's already happening. There's no way around it. And we went full steam ahead towards artificial general intelligence, AGI, when AI can perform at the level of a human expert. I say we're hitting 50% in June 2023 when it comes to progress towards this AGI. And we hit some fascinating milestones, including self-improvement, some embodiment via Google's Palm E. Microsoft referred to GPT-4 as early AGI. More embodiment here. There's truthfulness and groundedness being researched by Harvard and Microsoft that's really going to help us get all the way to AGI. I'm very grateful to Dennis Zilodge, who fed these milestones to GPT-4, and GPT-4 output this exponential chart predicting that we may reach artificial general intelligence by the 18th of July 2025. Let's see how close we come to that date. A note of caution. There's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt out there, and I think some of it is by design, whether by media or other bad faith actors trying to sow this fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And perhaps they've been doing it for years, 40 years. Terminator was 1984. That's a very long time ago. But now that the technology is here, that fear doesn't actually apply to a large language model that can reason, that can think, and that can conceptualize. These are not killer robots coming out to get us.
Terminator was 1984?
This is an amplification of our
I was only 3 years old in 84. So Terminator was old as shit when I watched it for the first time?
To waste time worrying, waste time in fear, waste time in looking at the negatives of AI, you don't get that time back. That's gone. Let's bring in a human-like avatar to put this in a slightly different way for us.
I think the most important question facing humanity is the universe a friendly place? This is the first and most basic question all people must answer for themselves. For if we decide that the universe is an unfriendly place, then we will use our technology, our scientific discoveries and our natural resources to achieve safety and power by creating bigger walls to keep out the unfriendliness, and bigger weapons to destroy all that which is unfriendly. And I believe that we are getting to a place where technology is powerful enough that we may either completely isolate or destroy ourselves as well in this process. If we decide that the universe is neither friendly nor unfriendly, and that God is essentially playing dice with the universe, then we are simply victims to the random toss of the dice and our lives have no real purpose or meaning. But if we decide that the universe is a friendly place, then we will use our technology, our scientific discoveries and our natural resources to create tools and models for understanding that universe. Because power and safety will come through understanding the universe's workings and its motives.
A note of peace. We're now in a place where integrated AI is doing phenomenal things. It was doing phenomenal things in 2021 and even further in 2022. But in 2023, the use cases are things that I hadn't even imagined, and they really are incredible. Let's have a look at some of them. What about at home saving $150 a week and 5 hours a week by using GPT for meal planning, taking into consideration dietary requirements of family members? In business, assigning the role of company CEO to the latest AI models. In jurisprudence and legal rulings, several judges in countries like India and Colombia have used large language models to help them with verdicts and legal rulings. In chemistry, Andrew White, a former consultant for OpenAI, has been using GPT-4 to go from natural language instructions to robot actions to synthesized molecule. So the robot is actually helping out with creating this stuff from scratch without human intervention. And in medicine, there's a lot going on, but the theory of chatbot doctors bringing higher quality responses and 9.8 times higher prevalence of empathy to patients has got me excited. Coming up next, either this year or next year, these are some of the things that OpenAI have said. What about using models to solve climate change completely? That's what these models are for. This is why we have superintelligence. We can also use them to ensure completely personalized education. Schools are over, but personalized and tailored education, even before brain-computer interfaces get here, is going to be a real game changer. These models should also facilitate affordable and high-quality healthcare. According to OpenAI, it's one of the UN SDGs as well, and bringing economic freedom for everyone to pursue what they find most fulfilling. There are countless more examples waiting for you to imagine and reveal. The technology here is not the limitation. The human being is the limitation. What can we come up with? What are some of these use cases and applications that haven't been thought of or haven't been thought of to the extent that they could be pushed? That's really exciting to me. You're living in a magical time. Superintelligence is on our doorstep. It's a virtual impossibility that you and I live in this time and space, and that the models, the concepts we're talking about in mid-2023, firstly came to pass, secondly, will almost be irrelevant by the end of 2023. I don't think we'll be talking about ChatGPT in December 2023, and some of the models that we've seen in the last 6 months will be superseded already. The exponential unfolding of superintelligence is here, and you're living right in the middle of it. I've kept this report as succinct as possible. If you'd like to keep up with the weekly, fortnightly, monthly progress of artificial intelligence, I'd like to invite you to join the memo. We've got subscribers from everywhere, from the big research teams like NBER and RAND, through to major governments around the world. I've been told by several Western governments that they use these reports as part of their policy design. We've got big labs like Microsoft and Google, and startups that are all the way across the board. Love to have you in there. It gives me a lot more room to get more detailed with these kind of updates in a written format. The next edition features a really special gift from Professor Isaac Asimov. I can't talk about it here, but full subscribers will get access to something extraordinary. Thanks again for joining me for the mid-2023 report. The sky is entrancing.
Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah, I have the memo right here.
Love artificial intelligence? Excited by the explosive progress of integrated AI? I am. Join my private mailing list, The Memo.
Did you get that memo?
Yeah, I got the memo.
Get priority access to my articles, videos, and behind-the-scenes tips as soon as they're released, with a monthly or annual subscription.
Yeah. Didn't you get that memo?
lifearchitect.ai/memo.
I have the memo.
I didn't know this could be so.
Of all the things you do and all the companies you run, I think it's all awesome. The one thing that does concern me, and I know concerns a lot of people out there, so I do have to bring it up, which is Neuralink.
Sure.
So, firstly, can you explain what Neuralink is and what the goal of it is?
We put a chip in your brain to control your mind. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Concerns not alleviated.
Yeah, there you go. Jump right in. Step right up. Who wants one? So Neuralink, you'll be able to see Neuralink coming from a very long distance, because any device that you implant in a human you have to go through so many tests. It moves very slowly. You just do a few people at a time, and then you go to extreme lengths to prove safety. You have to go through the FDA approvals. Like, we're not trying to sidestep any, regulatory approvals. We're doing everything. So we're going far beyond what the requirements are of the FDA from a safety standpoint. Mm-hmm. And the initial devices will really just be pretty basic. They'll be about restoring functionality to people who've lost their connection between their brain and their body. So you can imagine, like, if, say, Stephen Hawking could talk or communicate as fast as somebody with a fully functioning body. Mm-hmm. That would be amazing. So that's like what we're trying to do. That's our first application, is to restore functionality to quadriplegics, tetraplegics, and people who have just, for whatever reason, no longer have a connection between, or a limited connection between their brain and their body. Mm-hmm. second application would be restoration of eyesight. So if somebody's gone completely blind, maybe even has lost the optic nerve, you can actually solely stimulate the neurons in the visual part of the cortex. So you can give people direct vision to the brain. In fact, you could actually, depending upon what cameras you use, you can actually see in different wavelengths.
Okay.
You know, like Geordie LaForge from, like, you know, you could like have that, like, I actually watched like an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Special effects compared to what we're used to are, like, you know, not that great, but he's got like the wraparound, you know, glasses, and you can see in different wavelengths, so you can see like ultraviolet, you know, infrared, and that kind of thing. So you can actually do that. You can say, like, you could see a radar if you wanted. Yeah.
What's the long term goal for it? Because I think myself and others, I think the first part sounds fine.
Yeah, that's like hard to argue with.
Yeah. But long term, I think the concern that people have is this just leading us into this dystopian transhumanist future? Where does it go? What are the ethical boundaries of it?
Well, I mean, the thing I wanted to emphasize is that it's not going to, like, sort of pounce on us overnight. You'll see it coming. It's going to be very slow. In fact, I really think that artificial general intelligence or digital superintelligence is to arrive before we have really advanced neural links. At least that's what the trend is right now. So, but ultimately the idea would be to achieve a symbiosis between biological mind and our kind of digital mind. So we're already kind of a cyborg if you think of, like, your phone and your computers as an extension of yourself. In fact, like, if you leave your phone behind, it's like you have missing limb syndrome. You're like, yeah, where'd it go? You know. So the phone is a kind of an extension of ourselves, like computer is. The various applications that we use are already an extension of ourselves. So we are already a cyborg. It's just that the interface is with our eyes and our fingers.
Yeah.
That interface, especially output, the rate at which we can type words into a phone or a computer, it's very slow. Our input is much better because with the data rate from vision is, I don't know, many thousands of times, maybe a million times better than the rate at which we can output. So our input is like maybe, I don't know, roughly a million times better than output. And so what a Neuralink device can do is improve that bandwidth, allow you to be symbiotic with the AI extension of yourself. So you can think of like the human brain really could be arguably divided into two parts. One is kind of like the primitive brain, the reptile brain, it's sometimes called. You know, it's like a sort of basic instincts, and then we've got the cortex, like the higher level thinking, planning, and that kind of thing. The two operate symbiotically. So I haven't yet met anyone who wants to delete their limbic system or delete their cortex. Everyone's quite happy having both.
Yeah.
They're like, I like it the way it is, you know. But your cortex is way smarter than your limbic system. But the irony is that even though the cortex is way smarter than the limbic system, most of what it's doing is trying to make the limbic system happy. It's like, limbic system's hungry. Okay, let's get some food. The limbic system is horny. Okay, let's, you know, have sex or whatever. What is it? I mean, the sheer amount of the cortexes of all the humans have put into trying to get laid is insane.
That's going to keep the species going.
Yeah, not even if you know it's not for procreation. Like the limbic system is really like too simple to understand that, like, sex does not result in procreation, because for almost all of human existence that it did. Birth control is a very recent thing. So the limbic system is like trying to incent procreation, and but now we can effectively hack the limbic system by doing procreation, by having sex without procreation. So which is, I guess, maybe part of the issue with, why do we have more kids? Is like in the past it would just happen because, in order to make the limbic system happy, you'd have sex, you didn't have birth control, so if you pop out some kids.
Yes.
So that's how it used to be. So even though you've got a cortex that's way smarter than the limbic system, the cortex is still just trying to make the limbic system happy. And if you think of like the computers as a sort of a third layer, the AI is a third layer, it's not necessarily the case that the AI would be true to our interests. I think if it's closely linked with logical intelligence, I think it could be just something, again, trying to make the cortex happy, which is trying to make the limbic system happy. So I think we'll put even more computing power to try to get laid, basically. Now the AI is going to help you get laid.
I think what it is that concerns people about it, number one being you, but I think the main thing is the fact that this is something that's like inside body. I think that the idea of someone putting a chip in my brain, I just have I have a visceral no. Like I have a very. I mean, it's
an optional thing. I mean, it's
Would it be the long term?
I hope so. I think it should be optional.
Yeah.
It'd be bizarre if it was not. No, I think it's
kind of like the reason I ask is because smartphones right now are sort of optional, but if you don't have a smartphone, the way everything is sort of designed around society, you cannot have a smartphone, but it's a massive hindrance and disadvantage in many ways.
The smartphone is almost essential society to do things.
Yeah. So could a Neuralink end up in that same sort of place?
It's possible, but I'm just saying, if it does, it's many decades from now. So it's not like, it's not today's problem.
Yeah.
I'd worry a bit more about digital superintelligence. I'd worry about, let's try to avoid World War III.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we're at least having enough kids to sustain our population. Basic stuff like that.
Yeah. What's your greatest concern with artificial intelligence? Because I know that who I've worked with it, but also I know it's something that you personally have sort of concerns about as well, which you've voiced in this podcast and elsewhere.
Commercials are meant to be 30 seconds, but this one is only 15. Because these fries cook in half the time. McCain Quick Cook Fries. They cook in half the time.
Yeah, I think that actually the most likely outcome for artificial intelligence is that it is good, that it will improve our lives, most likely. But there's some chance that it will not, and I think we just need to be very cognizant of that and understand that it's a powerful technology, it's a double-edged sword, and we need to put a lot of effort into ensuring that we have a good AI outcome and not a bad one.
What does a good one look like?
I'd recommend people read the Ian Banks books, the culture books. That's the best representation of a positive AI human future that I've seen.
Okay.
So my recommendation, I mean, effectively AI, I think it will massively enhance the human ability. It's like just a massive amplifier of human ability, just like the computer was. So really, it's just a question of like, there's some risk that it doesn't merely amplify human activity, but it's basically just being in charge.
Yeah.
And some risk it may view humanity negatively and decide that we're a blight on the earth. Like I think like a very dangerous thing would be if the sort of human extinctionist philosophy somehow got into AI. That would be that. Like that guy that was on the front page of the New York Times saying there's 8 billion people on Earth.
We don't want him coding it.
We don't want him coding it. Yeah, safe to say. There's quite a few people in this neck of the woods who have that either explicit or implicit extinctionist view.
Yes.
Where they view humanity as a blight on the face of the earth.
Yeah, there's a lot of antinatalists in the world, and people who
anti-human.
Yes, like you said, people who don't have the pride in being human, right? There's people who say,
guilty or something.
People even say that that's a speciesism. You know,
yeah.
I mean, I'm a human supremacist. I'll be open about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got to fight for Team Human. Like, if we don't fight for it as humans, who will?
Yeah, I mean, if the Earth exists and humans do not, then it's like we're saving the planet for who at that point?
Yeah.
What do you think about AI replacing jobs, though? Because that's a big concern. Even if AI doesn't sort of go rogue and start doing something directly horrible, I think a lot of people's concerns is just, hey, what about everyone's jobs?
It will certainly be very disruptive because jobs will be different. So no, I think the rate of the change caused by AI is going to be pretty radical. So the jobs that currently exist won't exist in the future. I think there will be new jobs. I do think, like in a benign AI scenario, we will really have abundance. The goods and services, unless they're artificially made scarce, like it's specialized artwork, or you want that particular house in that neighborhood, like it has to be artificial scarcity. But anything that is not made artificially scarce will be plentiful as in a benign AI scenario. You'll be able to have any products and services you want.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone will.
Does that not start to cause a whole new level of problems?
Yeah, it does. It's like you know, there's some things which sound like a thing, but may in fact be a curse. Yeah. Like I think you will live forever. It sounds like a blessing. It's actually a curse. You would not want to live forever. You don't know how long forever is. And another potential curse is you can have anything you want effortlessly. Do you want that?
Yeah.
Does anything matter at that point?
Yeah. And what about the value? I mean, I think a lot of the value of work isn't just getting money to buy things. It's the meaning, it's the purpose, it's knowing that you worked for this thing, right? It's different. Yeah. It's different to get $10 million because someone just gave you $10 million or you won a lottery versus you created a business and sold products and services that helped you to earn that money.
Exactly. So it's like, how do we find meaning and relevance?
Yeah.
If you have an age of abundance where the computer, you just ask for anything and get it, it is something we'll have to struggle with. That'll be, I don't know. It's kind of most likely where we're headed is an age of abundance. Or some existential angst.
Most optimistic about?
In fact, if I should say, for a Neuralink device, I mean, hovering is here in a benign AI scenario. Like, how do we even go along for the ride? How do we even understand the AI?
Okay.
Like, if we've got some sort of, incredible intelligence, unless we do sort of effectively better symbiosis, increase the bandwidth to the AI extension of ourselves, effectively augment our human intelligence substantially, we may not even be able to appreciate the wonders that will exist in the future.
Build your own cravings box with me, deluxe edition. Craving savory? Feeling fresh and supreme? Customize yours in the Taco Bell app. There are literally over 30,000 combinations. Just build your own in the Taco Bell app.
Subscriptions are you paying for? Rocket Money finds sneaky or forgotten subscriptions and makes canceling them as easy as clicking a button. On average, Rocket Money users save over $720 a year. Here's how it works. Just open the app, go to the Reoccurring tab, and here you can see all your reoccurring subscriptions. Tap on the subscription you want to cancel, then tap Cancel Now, and you're done. Subscription canceled. No confusing websites, no auto-renew, no long hold times. Want to save up to $720 a year? Don't wait, get Rocket Money right now.
Is a conversation with Dan Carlin, host of Hardcore History and Common Sense podcasts. To me, Hardcore History is one of, if not the greatest podcast ever made. Dan and Joe Rogan are probably the two main people who got me to fall in love with the medium of podcasting as a fan and eventually as a podcaster myself. Meeting Dan was surreal. To me, he was not just a mere human like the rest of us, since his voice has been a guide through some of the darkest moments of human history for me. Meeting him was like meeting Genghis Khan, Stalin, Hitler, Alexander the Great, and all of the most powerful leaders in history all at once in a crappy hotel room in the middle of Oregon. It turns out that he is in fact just a human, and truly one of the good ones. It was a pleasure and an honor for me. Quick mention of each sponsor, followed by some thoughts related to the episode. First is Athletic Greens, the all-in-one drink that I start every day with to cover all my nutritional bases. Second is Simply Safe, a home security company I use to monitor us capable of both good and evil, and it's the environment that the trajectory that we take through life.
How do we define evil? Evil seems to be a situational eye of the beholder kind of question. So if we define evil, maybe I can get a better idea of and that could be a whole show, couldn't it? Defining evil. But when we say evil, what do we mean?
That's a slippery one, but I think there's some way in which your existence, your presence in the world leads to pain and suffering and destruction for many others in the rest of the world. So you steal the resources and you use them to create more suffering than there was before in the world. So I suppose it's somehow deeply connected to this other slippery word, which is suffering. Is you create suffering in the world. You bring suffering to the world.
But here's the problem, I think, with it, because I fully see where you're going with that, and I understand it. The problem is the question of the reason for inflicting suffering. So sometimes one might inflict suffering upon one group of individuals in order to maximize a lack of suffering with another group of individuals, or one who might not be considered evil at all might make the seemingly rational choice of inflicting pain and suffering on a smaller group of people in order to maximize the opposite of that for a larger group of people.
Yeah, that's one of the dark things about, I've spoken and read the work of Stephen Kotkin. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the historian, and he's basically a Joseph Stalin scholar. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I realized, I'm not sure where to put Hitler, but with Stalin, really seems that he was sane and he thought he was doing good for the world. I really believe from everything I've read about Stalin that he believed that communism was for the world, and if you have to kill a few people along the way, it's like you said, the small groups, if you have to sort of remove the people that stand in the way of this utopian system of communism, then that's actually good for the world. And it didn't seem to me that he could even consider the possibility that he was evil. He really thought he was doing good for the world. And that stuck with me because he's one of the most, to our definition of evil, he seems to have brought more evil onto this world than almost any human in history. And I don't know what to do with that.
Well, I'm fascinated with the concept, so fascinated by it that the very first Hardcore History show we ever did, which was a full 15 or 16 minutes, was called Alexander versus Hitler. And the entire question about it was the motivations, right? So if you go to a court of law because you killed somebody, one of the things they're going to consider is, why did you kill them, right? And if you killed somebody, for example, in self-defense, you're going to be treated differently than if you killed somebody maliciously to take their wallet, right? Yeah. And in the show, we wondered, because, you know, I don't really make pronouncements, but we wondered about if you believe Hitler's writings, for example, Mein Kampf, which, you know, is written by a guy who's a political figure who wants to get all, so I mean, it's about as believable as any other political tract would be. But in his mind, the things that he said that he had to do were designed for the betterment of the German people, right? Whereas Alexander the Great, once again, this is somebody from more than 2,000 years ago, so, and with lots of propaganda in the intervening years. Right. But one of the views of Alexander the Great is that the reason he did what he did was to, for lack of a better word, write his name in a more permanent graffiti on the pages of history, right? In other words, to glorify himself. And if that's the case, does that make Alexander a worse person than Hitler because Hitler thought he was doing good, whereas Alexander, if you believe the interpretation, was simply trying to exalt Alexander? So the motivations of the people doing these things, it seems to me, matter. I don't think you can just sit there and go, the only thing that matters is the end result, because that might have been an unintentional byproduct, in which case that person, had you been able to show them the future, might have changed what they were doing. So were they evil or misguided or wrong or made the right, you know, so, and I hate to do that because there's certain people like Hitler that I don't feel deserve the benefit of the doubt. Right. At the same time, if you're fascinated by the concept of evil and you delve into it deeply enough, you're going to want to understand why these evil people did what they did. And sometimes it can confuse the hell out of you, you know, who wants to sit there and try to see things from Hitler's point of view to get a better understanding and sort of commiserate with. So, but I'm obviously, first history show, I'm fascinated with the concept.
So do you think it's possible, if we put ourselves in the mindset of some of the people that have created so much suffering in the world, that all of them had their motivations had good intentions underlying them?
No. I don't. I mean, it's simply because there's so many. I mean, the law of averages would suggest that that's not true.
I guess it is pure evil. Well, meaning you again, it's slippery, but the suffering is the goal.
Suffering, intentional suffering.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that, and I think that there's historical figures that one could point in, but that gets to the deeper question of: are these people sane? Do they have something wrong with them? Are they twisted from something in their youth? You know, these are the kinds of things where you start to delve into the psychological makeup of these people. In other words, is anybody born evil? And I actually believe that some people are. I think the DNA can get scrambled up in ways. I think the question of evil is important too, because I think it's an eye of the beholder thing. I mean, if Hitler, for example, had been successful, we're today on the 6th or 7th leader of the Third Reich, since I think his entire history would be viewed through a different lens, because that's the way we do things, right? Genghis Khan looks different to the Mongolians than he does to the residents of Baghdad, right? And I think, so an eye of the beholder question, I think, comes into all these sorts of things. As you said, it's a very slippery question.
Where do you put, as somebody who's fascinated by military history, where do you put violence as in terms of the human condition? Is it core to being human, or is it just a little tool that we use every once in a while?
Oh, I'm going to respond to your question with a question. What do you see the difference being between violence and force? Let me go farther. I'm not sure that violence is something that we have to put up with as human beings forever, that we must resign ourselves to violence forever. But I have a much harder time seeing us able to abolish force. And there's going to be some ground where, if those two things are not the same, and I don't know, maybe they are, where there's certainly some crossover. And I think force, you know, you're an engineer, you'll understand this better than I do, but think about it as a physical law. If you can't stop something from moving in a certain direction without pushing back in that same direction, I'm not sure that you can have a society or a civilization without the ability to use a counterforce when things are going wrong, whether it's on an individual level, right? A person attacks another person, so you step in to save that person, or on, even at the highest levels of politics or anything else, a counterforce to stop the inertia or the impetus of another movement. So I think that force is a simple, almost law of physics in human interaction, especially at the civilizational level. I think civilization requires a certain amount of, if not violence, then force. So, and again, they've talked, it goes back into St. Augustine, all kinds of Christian beliefs about the proper use of force, and people have philosophically tried to decide between, can you have a sort of an ahimsa, Buddhist sort of, we will be nonviolent toward everything and exert no force, or there's a reason to have force in order to create the space for good. I think force is inevitable. Now, we can talk, and I've not come up to the conclusion myself, if there is a distinction to be made between force and violence. Is a non-violent force enough, or is violence when done for the cause of good a different thing than violence done either for the cause of evil, as you would say, or simply for random reasons? We humans lack control sometimes. We can be violent for no apparent reason or goal. And that's it. You look at the criminal justice system alone, the way we interact with people who are acting out in ways that we as a society have decided is intolerable. Can you deal with that without force and at some level violence? I don't know. Can you maintain peacefulness without force? I don't know.
Just to be a little bit more specific about the idea of force, do you put force as general enough to include force in the space of ideas? So you mentioned Buddhism or religion or just Twitter.
I can think of no things farther apart than that.
Okay. Is the battles we do in the space of ideas, of the great debates throughout history, do you put force into that, or do you, in this conversation, are we trying to right now keep it to just physical force? In saying that you have an intuition that force might be with us much longer than violence.
I think the two bleed together. So because it's always my go-to example. I'm afraid, and I'm sure that the listeners all hate it, but take Germany during the 1920s, early 1930s, before the Nazis came to power. And they were always involved in some level of force, beating up in the streets or whatever it might be. But think about it more like an intellectual discussion until a certain point. It would be difficult, I imagine, to keep the intellectual counterforce of ideas from at some point degenerating into something that's more coercion, counterforce, if we want to use the phrases we were just talking about. So I think the two are intimately connected. Actions follow thought, right? And at a certain point, I think especially when one is not achieving the goals that they want to achieve through peaceful discussion or argumentation or trying to convince the other side, that sometimes the next level of operations is something a little bit more physically imposing, if that makes sense. We go from the intellectual to the physical.
Yeah, so it too easily spills over into violence.
Yes, and one leads to the other often.
So you kind of implied perhaps a hopeful message, but let me ask it in the form of a question. Do you think we'll always have war?
I think it goes to the force question too. So, for example, what do you do? Let's play with nation states now. Although I don't know that nation states are something we should think of as a permanent construct forever. But how is one nation state supposed to prevent another nation state from acting in ways that it would see as either detrimental to the global community or detrimental to the interests of their own nation state? And I think we've had this question going back to ancient times, but certainly in the 20th century, this has come up quite a bit. The whole Second World War argument sometimes revolves around the idea of what the proper counterforce should be. Can you create an entity, a League of Nations, a United Nations, a one world entity maybe even, that alleviates the need for counterforce involving mass violence and armies and navies and those things? I think that's an open discussion we're still having.
It's good to think through that. As having like a United Nations, there's usually a centralized control, so there's humans at the top, there's committees, and usually like leaders emerge as singular figures that then can become corrupted by power, and it's just a really important, it feels like a really important thought experiment and something to really rigorously think through. How can you construct systems of government that are stable enough to push us towards less and less war, less and less unstable, and another tough word, which is unfair, application of force. You know, that's really at the core of the question that we're trying to figure out as humans. As our weapons get better and better and better at destroying ourselves, it feels like it's important to think about how we minimize the over-application or unfair application of force.
There's other elements that come into play too. You and I are discussing this at the very high intellectual level of things, but there's also a tail wagging the dog element to this. So think of a society of warriors, a tribal society from a long time ago. How much do the fact that you have warriors in your society and that their reason for existing, what they take pride in, what they train for, what their status in their own civilization, how much does that itself drive the responses of that society, right? How much do you need war to legitimize warriors? That's the old argument that you get to, and we've had this in the 20th century too, that the creation of arms and armies creates an incentive to use them, right? And that they themselves can drive that incentive as a justification for their reasons for existence, That's where we start to talk about the interactivity of all these different elements of society upon one another. So when we talk about, governments and war, well, you need to take into account the various things those governments have put into place in terms of systems and armies and things like that to protect themselves, right? For reasons we can all understand. But they exert a force on your range of choices, don't they?
It's true. You're making me realize that in my upbringing, and I think upbringing of many, warriors are heroes. To me, I don't know where that feeling comes from, but the sort of die fighting is an honorable way to die. It feels like